Good evening. America's never-ending gunfight has taken another tragic twist. There's been carnage at a Christmas party at a centre for the disabled in San Bernardino, California. 14 people were murdered, another 17 wounded by heavily armed attackers. Hours later, two suspects, a man and a woman, were themselves chased, trapped and killed by police in a massive gun battle. A third person has been arrested. California police say the attack took planning.
Police close in on a black SUV just south of San Bernardino Airport. Its windscreen and bodywork shredded by gunfire.
Look at all the bullet holes in the windshield.
Inside, one of the shooters, a male and a female, behind a massacre at a disability centre just 3 kilometres away.
They're saying hundreds, possibly 1,000 shots fired.
Another lies dead in the street, an assault rifle nearby.
He is down and he is not moving, more than likely deceased.
Another suspect was detained, but it's uncertain whether they were involved.
We have a third person that was seen leaving the area. He is detained.
A police officer was also wounded in the gun battle that followed a murderous rampage about 10:30 local time. At the Inland Regional Centre, a facility catering for those with disabilities like autism and cerebral palsy.
We do have some preliminary numbers of upwards of 14 people that are dead and upwards of 14 people that are injured.
That toll later updated to 17 wounded. The killers were dressed in black military-style cargo pants, tactical vests with extra magazines, balaclavas.
He was wearing a black mask. That's all she told me.
Highly organised, but
I will tell you right now, we do not know if this is a terrorist incident.
As many as 600 employees work at the centre, but most of today's victims were outsiders attending a Christmas party.
We had an event that was hosted in our auditorium, and I guess the shooting happened in there.
Other staff heard gunfire, took cover.
She said she was locked up in a room. There were some shooters.
This man's wife saw a man in black.
She just told me he had a big gun and he was just shooting at the first floor.
She was evacuated from the centre. Staff told to keep their hands up until they were checked out. Police began a room-by-room search, but the gunman had already fled. Medics began first aid on the streets, rushing the more seriously wounded straight to hospital. Police, acting on a tip-off, traced the getaway car to a house in the nearby suburb of Redlands. A chase ensued, resulting in the shootout. Police say one man left that Christmas party angry after some kind of dispute, only to return minutes later heavily armed with at least one other person and began firing. They have identified that man as Saeed Farouk. His family has expressed shock.
I have no idea. I have no idea why would he do that? Why would he do something like this?
The second shooter, the woman, is 27-year-old Tasfeen Malik. She's believed to have been Farouk's girlfriend.
And Mike Amor joins us now from San Bernardino. Mike, such a terrible toll. What more can you tell us about these suspects?
Well, Mark, Saeed Farouk was 28 years old. He was a US citizen. He was also a San Bernardino County employee, believed to be a food inspector. He was a Muslim, said to be quite devout, dividing his time between work and prayer. His 27-year-old female accomplice is Tasfeen Malik. We don't know much about her, whether she was a US citizen, but they were in some type of relationship, perhaps married, and they had a 6-month-old baby that they left with Farouk's mother.
Mike, was there any religious aspect to this attack? Any possible connection with IS?
Mark, that's not immediately apparent. They're still looking at that Christmas party and that dispute at that party. Muslim leaders were quick to condemn this massacre and have pleaded with Americans not to blame the wider Muslim community. Mark.
OK, Mike Amor in California. Thank you.
Now, US Bureau Chief Mike Amor is at the scene of the massacre in San Bernardino right now. Mike, 352 mass shootings in the US this year. It's ludicrous. Will anything change?
Yeah, it is ludicrous, Rob, but nothing will change. President Obama has described it as the biggest frustration of his presidency, unable to get any changes to gun laws here, even basic changes to gun laws. And I've stood out the front of way too many massacres across this country, including a school massacre of 27-year-olds. Nothing changed then, nothing will change now. Like he has done so many times after shootings in this country, the president spoke again today. A fresh-faced 21-year-old smirking as he's accused of mass murder on sacred ground.
Dylan, what do you have to say?
Dylan Storm Roth was cornered over the border and flown back to South Carolina, where he'd been receiving counselling at an historic black church. This phone video shows the Bible study group where he spent an hour. This is believed to be Roth just before opening fire on parishioners. He reloaded 5 times, saying he wanted to kill black people.
He just said, I have to do it. He said, you rape our women and you taking over our country. And you have to go.
6 women and 3 men died, including a pastor and senator. He spared another woman to leave a witness, while a grandmother and her 5-year-old granddaughter played dead on the floor.
We woke up today and the heart and soul of South Carolina was broken.
Once again, Americans are leaving flowers at another memorial, as their powerless president is left to ask how this can continue to happen as he faces the cameras for the 14th time in the wake of a massacre.
At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
It's believed Roth's father gave him the gun for his recent 21st birthday. He'd been in trouble with police and posed on Facebook wearing an apartheid badge. His hate crime will be punishable, possibly by death.
Why are we so angry with one another? Why are we so willing to kill?
The church known as Mother Emanuel was central in the struggle against slavery and for civil rights in America's South. Tonight, it's the focus of unimaginable grief. In Charleston, North Carolina, Mike Amor, 7 News.
Mike Amor is in Paris's 11th district this evening at a cafe targeted in one of those attacks. Mike, there have also been arrests in France.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. I'm outside La Belle Equipe, a popular bistro here in Paris, one of the 6 sites that were attacked. You can still see the bullet holes after gunmen sprayed diners here, killing up to 19 people. Now, the father and brother of French terrorist Ismail Omar Mustafa are being questioned by police here in France. The older brother of Mustafa turned himself into authorities. His father was also taken into custody, as well as an unidentified woman. Both men lived here in France. Their properties are being searched. Properties belonging to other family members and friends have also been raided. To help police fight terrorism, President Hollande is hoping to introduce a raft of emergency legislation this week, banning people from returning from the battlefields of Syria, stripping citizenship and extending the state of emergency for another 3 months.
There's so much grief, so much pain, and there's occasional mass panic in Paris. Mike Amor joins us now. And Mike, we've seen Parisians very defiant, but obviously on edge. You were on the street when the mood suddenly changed.
Yeah, Mark, I was with a camera crew in Place de la Republique setting up for a live cross, much like this one. There was no obvious trigger, nothing that we heard, but someone got spooked, cried out, and the whole crowd just panicked. A candlelight vigil, a scream, then a stampede. Hundreds flee in panic from Republic Place at the centre of Friday's attacks. What's happened? What happened? What happened?
I don't know.
People dived into nearby restaurants, ducked under tables. Police with guns drawn took up defensive positions, trying to find the source of the threat. Our camera team was just metres away. We're not sure exactly what's going on. There's just mayhem and panic. This square was packed just a moment ago, and then Everyone started to run. Some say it was sparked by firecrackers, but we heard nothing. A similar panic nearby was caused by a light bulb exploding. More pictures have emerged from the Bataclan concert hall and the bloody aftermath on stage. One of those responsible and still on the run is 26-year-old Brussels-born Salah Abdeslam. He was pulled over near the French-Belgian border hours after the attacks, but allowed to proceed. The next flashpoint could be Saturday morning, when police are expected to release the preliminary report into who killed Freddie Gray.
With our rights, and we will fight.
This armed group of men and women are on patrol.
Police got to go. Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
The figures are frightening. There have been 58 people shot dead by Dallas police in a 10-year period. 42 of them were unarmed, and most of them were African American.
Because he didn't deserve to die like that.
Latricia Washington's 21-year-old brother Will was one of those killed, shot twice by police after stealing a chocolate bar. For tourists here in Times Square, this initially seemed like a bit of fun, but New York is so concerned it virtually shut down the subway system, meaning getting around the Big Apple is almost impossible.
Massive.
Despite leading the BMW Championship in Chicago from start to finish, the 27-year-old admits he couldn't sleep knowing the #1 title was at stake. This is a continuation of an amazing year for Jason. It's his 4th win in only 6 starts. He's 5th for the year, of course, including the US PGA Championship.
He's the best golfer on the planet right now.
He is a phenomenal golfer.
What's the lesson here? Dream big?
Dream big. Always dream big. Dream big. Have a good team.
This year's Golden Globes are more art house than blockbuster. There are no big budget contenders. This was one of the most remarkable finishes to a Super Bowl, and Tom Brady becomes only the 3rd quarterback to win 4 Super Bowl rings.
God is greater than all this, but this is pretty awesome.
Hippies, drifters, retirees, or those who just think this is the antidote to their broken American dream.
All walks of life. We have millionaires out here. You could be talking to somebody and never know that they're a multimillionaire.
It's outside the box living. It's teaching me how to live off the grid.
But the end may be near for Slab City. Residents fear authorities may be trying to shut down this eclectic community by restricting access to water, ordering local businesses to no longer supply it to them.
It's kind of like a cat and mouse game. We're constantly changing our tactics, changing our game plan of where we want to go patrol, and they're doing the same thing. They're going out further.
The largest bus is probably one we did a little while ago. It was about 2.5 tons, and the street value they estimated at $2.7 million.
It's about now, sunset, that marks the start of the most difficult and dangerous part of the Coast Guard's job. Often these smuggling boats, the pangas, lay low during the day and wait for night to make their run to the coast. Back then, the Salton Sea was a celebrity playground, considered the Riviera of America's west coast.
It was wonderful.
The yacht club was beautiful. All the resorts were just incredibly beautiful.
The shoreline is littered with the remains of the only fish, tilapia, that can survive in the salty sea. But it's getting saltier, and soon even it will disappear. In just over a year, the water supply used to keep the Salton Sea at its current level will be cut off, diverted instead to thirsty major cities here in California. The sea will immediately start to dry up and will finish less than 1/3 of its current size. This is the spectacular landscape of Arizona. It's here where the famous Apache warrior Geronimo once brought fear to the hearts of white settlers before he and his people were forced off the land. A change in laws late last year gave miners access to the land. President Eisenhower had declared it a mine-free zone back in 1955, but the change happened without public scrutiny when it was attached to fine print at the last moment to key defense spending legislation passed by the US Congress.
They snuck it through a must-pass bill.
How would you describe that? Sneaky, underhanded? It's
Sneaky,
not illegal, obviously.
underhanded.
Now, 150 years after being forced from their land onto reservations, the Apache could be making one last stand.